Hey, Mike. What? Who's got next?
What's good, y'all? It's your man, Hezo, and welcome back to the Blacktop, where I always got next, you feel me? Well, this was not the recap that I had in mind tonight, but here we are. Hawks and Raptors, man, this game was just absolutely embarrassing. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Leave a like on the video. We are on our way to 700 subs, so if y'all can help me out and help me get there, I would greatly appreciate it. Let's get right into it. Turnovers, 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 and more turnovers. That's the recap. That is realistically the recap. But in all seriousness, man, this game was not the game that I really expected. Atlanta came out the gate, you know, kind of sloppy, obviously turning the ball over, not really scoring well. Scotty Barnes was hot coming out the gate. The Raptors were hot right from the gate, making threes, creating turnovers, and getting into transition. And that was the biggest difference in the first half and really the entire game was the fast break points. I think that the Raptors had over 40 fast break points, man. That is just unacceptable for this team when you have two great ball handlers like Trey and DeJounte who can create shots. Atlanta goes down 11 in the first quarter. Made a nice run to cut it back and really make it a game. Second quarter, they went on a run early, but Atlanta just did such a poor job of closing out the second and third quarter, and that was a huge difference in this game. Second half rolls around, man, and Atlanta really started to get it going. Dre got hot from three. Started out, I think, 3 for 3 from three to start out the second half. Atlanta goes on a run and was climbing back into the game. I think even took a 2-point lead, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what I want to see. Now we start to get going. Dre picks up his fourth foul, and then from there, man, it was all Toronto. Once Dre got his fourth foul, it was all Toronto. They went on a run of their own, led by Siakam, who, let me say real quick, man, credit to the Raptors. I have underestimated this team, and it's time for me to shut the hell up about that because the Raptors are a damn good team. They own the Hawks, and it's just that simple. We were 1-3 against them last year. We just got our ass kicked tonight. The Raptors just own us. And real quick, before I continue to dive into the second half, I want to say that Pascal Siakam, I will take over any four in the league that's not named Giannis. This dude is an absolute beast. He didn't really shoot well tonight, but he was doing everything else, and including attacking the rim. Keep in mind, man, this is a game that the Raptors don't even have Fred VanVleet, and we just got blown out the fucking water. And I want to say, I don't know if this is because this is the road trip that's starting to catch up, but like I said, you know, let me get back into the second half here. After Dre got that fourth foul, Raptors went on that one, and the difference really was the turnovers, number one, and Atlanta was settling for jump shots the entire second half. They were not attacking the rim, as opposed to Toronto, on the other hand, was getting to the rim at will and drawing contact. Atlanta went on a 5-minute plus scoring drought, could not score, while Toronto just kept drawing contact, getting to the free throw line, and shout out to them for that, creating turnovers. OG Anunoby was just an absolute menace on defense. He had 5 steals in the first half. 5 steals in the first half. That's insane, man. It was so frustrating and just embarrassing to watch this team go up against this Raptors team. The Raptors have so much versatility on defense, and it makes the Hawks uncomfortable. It makes Trey uncomfortable. We've seen this before. We've seen it with the Heat. When the Hawks play teams that have multiple versatile defenders that can switch, that's what makes the Hawks uncomfortable. The Raptors and the Heat are the two teams that they own the Hawks. They just own the Hawks. There was nothing Atlanta could do to stop Toronto from getting out in transition. They were forcing turnovers and just run. They were just pedal to the metal, running it down the throat of the Hawks. Even off missed shots, not even off turnovers, off missed shots. There they go, back in transition, getting to the rim, drawing contact. Just very frustrating to watch, man. Extremely, just a terrible, terrible game overall for the Hawks. No one really played well. I mean, yeah, you could say maybe Double O played well. I'll give you that, because he did do a decent job on Siakam for the most part on the perimeter. But Trey played abysmal. I think he had 9 turnovers, and that's just unacceptable. DeJounte had an okay game. I mean, Dre was starting to get going in the second half. He was starting to get, you know, once he hit those first 3 threes, and then picks up that 4th foul. And I really want to say this, man, and this is not a homer talking. Dre gets called for the most bullshit fouls, ticky-tack fouls, soft calls, and it seems like he's the only one that gets called for him. I don't know. That's just how I look at it. And now, I'm not saying Atlanta wasn't fouling Toronto, because they were. Toronto was doing a hell of a job getting to the paint and drawing contact, but the fouls that DeAndre Hunter was getting called for were ticky-tack, and that's all I want to say about that. Credit to the Raptors, man. They kicked our ass. I gotta tell you, man, this Hawks team is they're not disciplined. They are not disciplined at all. I see them coming out of timeouts. They're not running sets. Trey stands around on offense when DeJounte has the ball. There was a play, I can't remember, in the second quarter, maybe the third quarter, where DeJounte was ISOing and driving to the rim, and Trey was standing at about 30 feet. He was about 5 feet behind the 3-point line, just standing there. That's bad offense. There's no movement with this team. It's just ISO, 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 pull up for a jump shot. This team has no movement coming off screens. That's the one thing I will say about Justin Holiday. And y'all know how I feel about Justin Holiday at this point. He had an okay game, I might add, but he at least is coming off screens, coming off pin downs, trying to get open looks for 3. And I don't understand why they don't do the same thing for DeAndre Hunter on a consistent basis, and the same thing for Trey. Trey stands around and ball watches when DeJounte Murray has the ball, and it's so fucking frustrating to see. This offense is just not what it's supposed to be, and you can see that they are missing a guy like Kevin Huerter, who is absolutely balling out of his mind in Sacramento right now. That's neither here nor there. The Hawks just lack discipline. Turnovers, constant turnovers. When you turn the ball over that many times in the first half and you don't correct that in the second half, that's a problem. That's coaching. Same thing with the fouling. You are not making adjustments to get Toronto out of transition, to get easier buckets and force turnovers of your own. At some point, Nate might have to go, man. He's not doing a good job with this team. I don't see adjustments, and I see a lack of discipline. Let's get into my final takeaways for the game, man. Number 1, the biggest takeaway for this game was the carelessness and sloppy turnovers for Atlanta on the offensive end. Keep in mind, man, a lot of these turnovers were unforced. They were just sloppy passes that Toronto was jumping the passing lane because of laziness. And a lot of that is on Trey. And we've seen this before. We've seen Trey play like this against versatile defensive teams. I talked about it a little bit ago. Trey struggles against teams like a Toronto, like a Miami. And that leads me to my next point. Toronto's defense, man. Toronto's defense, I underestimated. I'm gonna be honest with you. I underestimated. Toronto's defense is elite. It is something very, I hate going up against it, but credit to the Raptors, man. They did their job. They shut down the 2 guards. I think DeJounte finished with like 20 or whatever, but they made Trey extremely uncomfortable. I think Scotty Barnes was the primary assignment for Trey for the most part from what I saw, and he did a hell of a job on him. Trey really couldn't get to his 3. He couldn't get to the rim. He really wasn't drawing any contact, and he was just throwing sloppy passes. Credit to the Toronto defense, because they were making everybody uncomfortable. Number 3, poor defense, man. Atlanta's defense this season it's been trash. I mean, let's be honest. It has been absolutely trash. This team cannot guard the perimeter. They constantly get beat by 4s that can get to the rim, like a Giannis, like a Pascal. And part of that is because John Collins is not a perimeter defender. So when you have him out on the perimeter guarding a guy like Pascal Siakam, he can't guard him. He can't guard him on the perimeter. And that's not a shot at JC, because JC has turned into a decent rim protector, but he does not have the lateral quickness to stick with these 4s. Atlanta's defense has not been good. You brought DeJounte Murray in, and Atlanta's defense looked pretty good in the first games, but look who we played, man. We played the Rockets, the Pistons, and the Magic. Those are 3 teams that were in the top 5 picks from last season. These are 3 terrible teams up against the 2 playoff teams that we have played now so far. We are now 0-2 against playoff teams, and a lot of that is on the defense. The defense was just an absolute no-show tonight. I mean, the Raptors put up 130 points with no Fred VanVleet. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. It's poor. I mean, the fouling, that counts as too, you know, with defense. When you're constantly fouling and constantly letting guys live at the free throw line, that's bad defense. That's no discipline. I don't understand why Nate has not made an adjustment with those type of, you know, these little things that can be easily, well, maybe not easily cleaned up, but cleaned up. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. We are not a contending team right now. We do not look like a contending team. Sure, we look really good against bad teams, but we looked okay against Milwaukee, you know, came down to the wire. Could have played a lot better, but keep in mind, man, that was an injury-riddled Milwaukee team. Milwaukee did not have Chris Middleton, did not have Pat Connaughton. You know, that's two key guys for them, especially Chris Middleton, and we lost. No Fred VanVleet for the Raptors. We lose by 30. This is just unacceptable basketball for a team that's expected to be a higher seed, maybe not a higher seed, but a playoff team and make a run. We have looked bad, and I'm just calling it for what it is. Now, you can call that early growing pains. You can call it whichever you want, and maybe it's good that we have growing pains early on this season to get it out the way, but right now, the Hawks have not been playing good basketball. Now, we dropped two on the road, obviously both of those being on the road, and like I said earlier, is that because of this road trip, because of the travel? Maybe. You never know. I mean, maybe it is. That's part of the NBA, man. You have to learn to adjust to that and win ball games that you should be able to win. Atlanta, in my opinion, I think is a better all-around team than Toronto. That's just my opinion, and don't get me wrong. I am not hating on Toronto. Toronto fans, do not take that the wrong way. When I look at the roster, I look at two All-Stars compared to one, and Pascal, man, he is a beast. Dude is an absolute beast. Well, Fred VanVleet's an all-star. Let me pump the brakes there. So either way, overall, we should have not lost this game by 30. And again, credit to the Raptors for that. Huge credit to them. They deserve all the credit in the world for this game because we didn't show up, man. We did not show up. My final takeaway for this game, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is the struggles that Atlanta does with versatile defensive teams. Teams like Miami, teams like Toronto. Again, I've already mentioned them. When you make Trae uncomfortable, you win. Because when Trae is not going offensively, there's not too many answers that Atlanta has for opposing teams to get going. Unless Dre is on absolute fire from three, or JC is on fire, who he didn't have a good game again. He had a better game, but it wasn't a great game by any means. I think he only finished with like 11 points, whatever. He's been struggling shooting the three ball. Atlanta offensively has a lot to figure out. And it's not, I'm not even putting that on Trae and DeJounte because realistically, they've meshed pretty well, but it's the other parts of the offense. It's the isolation ball. It's the standing around while one dude just dribbles. That's the way the Sixers play. That is not the way that Atlanta is supposed to play. Atlanta has built this team off of pick and roll. Trae gets into pick and roll action and either kicks it out to an open shooter or hits his lob, or gets a lob or hits his floater. We have not seen that as much this year. Trae has not gotten to the rim as much, and I don't know what it is. I feel like they're not going to the pick and roll as much. It's a lot more isolation. I feel like a lot of guys are not getting enough touches. Again, I've already mentioned this. I didn't feel like words are hard. John Collins was getting enough touches the last couple games, and that's why he had two kind of dud games. He got some more touches this game, didn't play extremely well, but he did have some buckets. Dre had a nice start to the second half, but again, he's been in foul trouble, man, and it is hard to get into a rhythm when you are in foul trouble. And again, I don't really put that all on Dre because I saw on Twitter some people were saying that he has no discipline. I don't really look at it like that, man. Dre has been called for a lot of bad fouls, and it's just that simple. And I think the discipline overall for the Hawks has not been good, and I've mentioned that earlier. I'm gonna pretty much leave it there, man. There's really not much more to talk about with this game. I mean, the takeaway was pretty much just the turnovers. That was the main overall thing. The discipline is just it's just not there. And again, I'm gonna start campaigning eventually for Nate to be on his way out if he does not figure it out. We're still 4-3 on the season. We got a huge game in New York to close out the road trip coming up on Wednesday. You have to win this ball game. New York is they're a better team this year, a way better team this year. You got to go get this win. Go get this win, Atlanta. Get to 5-3. get back home. Maybe we can start getting some momentum. But we got a lot to figure out, man. A lot to figure out. Let me know what y'all's thoughts down in the comments. What did y'all think about this game overall? Really not much to think about, to be honest with you. Leave a like on the video, and I will catch y'all next episode.